It's pizza night. Welcome to Rain's Kitchen and Garden. My name is Rain. Today I'm making two pizzas. This is my cheddar cheese pizza, and this is my all-dressed vegan cheese pizza. We're going to start off by making the pizza dough, and then we're going to make the pizza sauce, and then finally we'll make the vegan cheese for the all-dressed vegan pizza. Then we'll put it all together for a delicious pizza dinner. I'll have the written recipes in links in the description below, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. So let's begin. These are the ingredients you'll need for the pizza dough. This recipe makes enough dough for 2 large pizzas. I have some active dry yeast, 2 1/4 teaspoons or 8 grams, 1 1/3 cups or 335 milliliters of warm water. I've heated that warm water to 105 to 115 Fahrenheit. That's 40 to 45 Celsius. I have 2 tablespoons or 23 milliliters of olive oil, 3/4 of a teaspoon or 6 grams of salt, 1 tablespoon or 14 grams of brown sugar, 3½ cups or 500 grams of all-purpose flour, and keep some handy because you might need more as you knead the dough. To top my pizzas, well, I've got some cheddar cheese for my cheddar cheese pizza. I'm also going to be putting some nice fresh basil on top. And for my vegan pizza, I've got some mushrooms. These are canned mushrooms. I usually like to use fresh, but I didn't have any, so I'm going to use canned mushrooms. I have some green peppers. They've been in the freezer for a little while. That's why they have a little frost on them. I've also got some green olives and some onions. These are the ingredients for my homemade pizza sauce. This recipe makes anywhere from 4 to 6 cups of pizza sauce, depending on how long you boil it down. I've got some olive oil, 4 tablespoons or 45 milliliters, 4 cloves of garlic, 20 fresh basil leaves. I have 4 pints of my home canned tomatoes here. That's 2 liters. Half a teaspoon of powdered oregano. And I've got some sugar that I'm using. This is turbinado, it's a brown sugar, and this is optional. I've got 4 cubes, and that comes to 4 teaspoons or 16 grams. I add sugar to pretty much anything that I use my home canned tomatoes with, because when you can your tomatoes, you have to use some lemon juice. So I like to sort of offset the sourness of the lemon juice with a little bit of sugar. These are the ingredients for the vegan cheese. This recipe makes about 3 cups of cheese. I have 3 medium potatoes, and you want to have enough potatoes to make about 2 cups or 450 grams of cubed potatoes. I have 2 carrots here. I'm probably only going to use one of them because I usually use 2 medium carrots, but my carrots are giant for some reason, but you want to have enough to make 1 cup or 250 grams of cubed carrots. I have half a cup or 125 milliliters of water, a 1/3 cup or 68 milliliters of olive oil, 1 tablespoon or 16 milliliters of lemon juice, a half a cup or 45 grams of nutritional yeast. And in this bowl, I have 2 teaspoons or 15 grams of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon each of onion powder and garlic powder. I can't give that to you in grams because it's a little too light for my scale. I also have a dash of cayenne pepper and half a teaspoon or 4 grams of vegan chicken seasoning. To make vegan chicken seasoning, you want to mix together half a cup or 65 grams of nutritional yeast, 3/4 of a tablespoon of onion powder, a half a tablespoon of dried parsley, 1 tablespoon of celery salt, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, a 1/4 of a teaspoon of paprika, a 1/4 of a teaspoon of thyme, a 1/4 of a teaspoon of sage, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of turmeric. Put all of that into a blender and blend it to a fine powder. I have a video called How to Make Vegan Chicken Seasoning, and I will leave a link in the description below and in the card above. Let's start by making our pizza dough. You want to start the pizza dough at least 2 to 3 hours before serving so that it has a chance to go through the rising process. So in my large bowl here, I'm going to put my warm water, and I've heated that up to 110 Fahrenheit. That's 40 degrees Celsius. And I'm going to sprinkle in my yeast. You don't want to just plop it in, just sprinkle it in. Because if you plop it in, it might just become a big ball of yeast, and I don't know, that's kind of gross if you bite into it. You don't want your water to be too hot because it'll kill your yeast, but if it's too cold, it might not activate it. So I'm just going to give that a little bit of a whisk with my fork until it's all combined and the yeast is all melted into the water, that is. I have 4 dogs in my kitchen with me today, so you might hear some snoring in the background because they're all sleeping. It's very cute. All right, so what I'm going to do is put some cling film on top of that and just a little tea towel, and I'm going to let that sit for 10 minutes until it's nice and frothy. It's been 10 minutes, so let's check our yeast. Let's see if it's nice and frothy. It's definitely nice and frothy. See all that foam? That's what we're looking for. So now we're ready to continue. To the yeast mixture, I'm adding my olive oil and my salt and my sugar. And I'm just going to use that same fork and just mix all that in together. Then I'm going to start adding my flour a little bit at a time. I'm just going to mix that with a spatula in between adding more flour. Because if I dump it in all at once, it's not going to combine very well. We are going to be kneading this though for 10 minutes. But initially I want to try to mix as much as I can together with the spatula. I'll just dump the rest in. Now when it becomes a little too tough for you to mix with the spatula, that's when you want to turn it out onto your work surface and start kneading it together. If you have a kitchen mixer, I've said this before, I'm jealous of you. If you have a kitchen mixer, you can stick it in there and use a dough blade, is that what they call them? And that's how you can knead your dough. It's on my wish list, my friends. Okay, that's getting just a little too tough for me, so I'm gonna pour that out onto my counter. I'm gonna get all of that dough out of there. Okay, sorry for the bowl in the camera. There, I just want to make sure I got everything out, and this bowl is huge, so it's hard for me to hold it with one hand. What I'm going to do right away is I've got some olive oil here, and I'm just going to put a little bit of olive oil into my bowl because we're going to be putting the dough back in there. And just while I have clean hands, I wanted to just put that back and put that olive oil into the bowl. So I'm going to start kneading my dough now for 10 minutes. Here we go. And I've got some flour beside me, just in case I need to add more. Because depending on the humidity of your house, the barometric pressure, you know, if your house is dry, you may find that depending on when you make this pizza dough, you need more or less flour. I have definitely noticed that in the summer when it's really humid out, I need a lot less flour. I mean, a lot more flour, I should say. Sorry about that. When it's humid, I need more flour. When it's dry, I need less flour and more liquid. There, I hope that makes better sense. Sometimes it's hard for me to multitask. So now what's happening is it's completely sticking to my fingers here. So I'm going to just try to get as much of the dough off my fingers as possible. And like I said, I have some flour here on the side, and I'm just going to put some flour at the top of my workspace here and grab some of that flour and just work it in a little bit at a time. I don't want to add too much more flour, only what's needed. Get the pun? Needed. I'm a comic genius. There we go. It's starting to work in really nicely here. I do, however, have to get some of that flour off my hands because I don't want it to be all sticky like that. We're trying to get a nice, smooth dough. And it really does take about 10 minutes, so, you know, don't skimp out on the kneading time. All right, I'm going to put a little flour onto my hands. I probably should have rolled up my sleeves for this. Anytime it sticks, I'm adding a little bit more flour. Well, it's been about 10 minutes that I've been kneading this dough, and I want to show you what you should look for. Basically, it's a nice smooth dough. It's not sticking to the counter or to my hands anymore. And I always give this example. If you take your hand and you push down on the dough and listen, it makes that sort of sound. But it doesn't stick to your hands, so it's nice and smooth and it's ready for the first rise. So we're going to put the dough back into the bowl, the one that I put the olive oil in. And I'm going to turn it over so the olive oil is coating the dough on all sides. And I'm going to cover that with my cling film, and I'm going to put it in a nice warm spot and let it rise for an hour to 90 minutes. And I want it to really double in size. And the warmest spot right now for me that'll fit this size bowl is into my oven with the oven light on. The oven is off, but I'm going to put the light on, and that's going to rise really nicely over the next hour or so. I'm going to clean up my counter now. And if you will, please stay tuned for a quick word from my sponsor, and then we'll start making our vegan cheese. All right, we're going to do step 1 in preparing our vegan cheese, and that's preparing the carrots and the potatoes. I'm going to peel these. I'm going to peel the carrots one at a time because I only need 1 cup of cubed carrots, and I have these giant carrots here, like I mentioned when I was reading the ingredient list to you. And I usually use 2 medium carrots to fill 1 cup. So we'll see. I may have to peel the other one and get that one ready. Actually, you know what? I'm going to peel it anyway because I can always use it for something else. I'm making some soup tomorrow, so I can add whatever's left to the soup. That way I don't have to come back and peel it later. Okay, I'm going to peel the potatoes as well. Potatoes, I know I usually need about 3 medium potatoes. I always use red potatoes. I don't think it would be an issue if you used a different kind of potato, a potato that you enjoy. I know some potatoes are starchier than others, so I will be honest, I don't know how that might affect the vegan cheese because I've only ever used these ones here. I just love the flavor of them. There's a little spot here. I'll take a look at that when I'm chopping these up. All right, I'm going to give these a little bit of a rinse. And all of this is going to go into my compost pile. I have wild turkeys that are hanging out on my property right now, and they're going to love this. I don't even mind if it composts, as long as, you know, either the critters get it or the earth gets it. I'm happy. Now we can start chopping up our vegetables. Now I've got these 2 measuring cups here. This is a 2 cup and this is a 1 cup. And what I'm going to do is fill these up to the top, all the way to the top. This 2 cupper with the potato cubes and this 1 cupper with the carrot cubes all the way to the top. I know that, you know, we'll stop here. It says at this point it's 8 ounces, 1 cup, 250 grams here, but I always just, you know, fill it right to the top. So I'm going to start with my potatoes, and I'm going to try to chop these as uniform as possible. And what I mean by that is, let me check that spot right away. Just a little bruise. Yeah, just a little bruise. I want them to be cubed, but not big cubes. And I want them to be kind of the same size if possible, which is hard when you have oddly shaped potatoes. Why don't I do this? And that way you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'll put it here. There we go. And once this reaches the top, I'm going to stop cutting potatoes. Sometimes I need to peel another one, but most of the time 3 is the magic number that I need. There's another little blemish. Let me check that out. I just want to check, you know, to make sure there's no yucky stuff in there. I'll leave that to your imagination. We're getting close to the top. All right. And it always works out pretty perfectly for me. You see? It's at the top. I'll turn it on the side so you can see. I've got it filled all the way up. So that's my 2 cups of potatoes. And now I'm going to chop up my 1 cup of carrots. Why don't I do this in sections? Because this carrot is quite thick at the top. Yeah, already we're almost at the top of the cup there, and I've only done half the carrot, so I really don't think I'm going to need that second carrot. But we'll see. Yep, just 1 gigantic carrot is all it took to fill my cup. You see, it's filled all the way to the top. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to put my carrots and potatoes into a pot of water, bring that to a boil, and I'm going to boil it until the vegetables are soft. So maybe around the 20 or 30 minute mark, I'm going to take a fork, stick it in. If it's fork tender, then these are ready. While the potatoes and carrots are boiling, I'm going to put my pizza sauce together and get that on the stove. So the first thing I want to do is prepare my garlic and my basil. This is such a simple pizza sauce, but it's so, so delicious and flavorful. So I'm just going to... That's a hard piece of garlic. I'm just going to crush down the garlic. That's just to break the skin. It's easier to pull the skin off that way, but that one was a hard one. I needed 2 hands for that. See, it comes right off. I love that about garlic. I hope I was able to give this one enough elbow grease. Yeah, there we go. Pulls right off. And I've said this in videos before. This works very well when you have old garlic. And by old garlic, I mean usually grocery store garlic. Can be anywhere from 6 months to a year old. It depends. And this method works very well to remove the skins. If you have new garlic, for example, garlic that you've just recently harvested from your garden or that you possibly bought at a farmer's market, it doesn't work so well that way. You kind of have to peel it under cold water for it to come off easily. And that's just my experience. So I just wanted to mention that. I'm just cutting off the little ends. And then I'm going to just really roughly chop it and put it back into the bowl, get it ready for the pot. I'm going to move that bowl for now because I think it's in the way. So the way I'm chopping it right now is I'm holding down the top. Oh, we had a little escapee. I'm holding down the top of the blade and I'm letting the middle of the blade do the work. And if you find there are any large pieces, you can go over it as many times as you want. But I think mine is nicely chopped here. So I'm going to put that right back into its bowl and prepare the basil. That basil smells so good. I love fresh basil. I got lucky the last time I went to the grocery store, which was about a month ago now. All of the basil plants were on sale for $3 each, which is a good price here in Canada where I live anyway. So I bought 5 of them and I've been keeping them going and they're looking great. The water is boiling for my potatoes and carrots, so I'm keeping an eye on that while I'm going to cut up my basil. And I find the easiest way to cut up basil isn't to, use a knife and chop it. It's to use scissors. And I'm going to kind of, in a way, slice it in half like this. Put those together. And then just cut it up. I think it works very well that way. It's the easiest way to do it, in my opinion. See? It's nice and cut up now. I like that. I just try to get leaves that are approximately the same size. I believe that basil is part of the mint family. And I have a mint bed outside, a raised bed filled with mint. But I've always found it very difficult to grow basil. Though stay tuned, this spring, early summer, I purchased 12 packs of basil seeds, and they're all different varieties. And I'm going to do a major basil experiment this year in the garden. So keep an eye out on that. And I didn't even, touch the surface of how many varieties of basil there are. I thought there was 1 or 2. I thought there was green basil and I thought there was purple basil. But little did I know there are dozens of different varieties. So I did buy a dozen and we'll see. Okay, so the basil's all ready to go. I'm going to give that a little bit of a rinse. Well, my friends, I have my pot here and I have it on medium-low heat and I'm going to add my olive oil. And I want to heat the olive oil up so that I can cook my garlic. Now don't heat it too high. You don't want your garlic to burn, and I'm going to show you a picture right now. This is what my first batch of garlic looked like because my heat was on too high. See how brown that is? It completely burned. So this is actually my second take of this because I want to make sure that, you know, I am very transparent with you guys, and, you know, let's be realistic here. Sometimes we burn things, right? And this is much better. The first time when I put the garlic in, it sizzled like crazy and the garlic started browning immediately. Now this is much better. I'm going to keep it on minimum. And I'm going to cook my garlic until it's fragrant, and that's about 1 minute. Okay, so it's been about a minute, and my garlic is not brown, so I didn't burn it. I'm happy I didn't do that this time. So I'm just going to sprinkle in the basil. And it's sizzling a little bit because it's still a little wet. Oil and water, right? Opposites. So let's give that a little stir. I wish you could smell what's going on here right now. Oh, does it ever smell good? So now I'm going to add my 4 jars of tomatoes. And at the same time, I'm going to put the heat up to medium. Aren't those colors pretty together? I just love how visually beautiful this is. The green and the red. I canned these tomatoes about 7 months ago. I canned 300 pounds of tomatoes because I wanted to have enough for a year. For me, tomatoes are part of my main diet. Pretty much all of the food I make has tomato in it, so for me it's important to have fresh tomatoes, and because you can't get fresh tomatoes, at least at a good price here in Canada in the winter, I always can. And I canned 300 pounds, and I'm going to leave you the link for those videos too, if you want to learn how to water bath can tomatoes. I have enough for a year. I'm very happy. And next September, I'll be doing it all over again. Another 300 pounds, probably. So now I'm going to add my oregano. And those sugar cubes. And the sugar will melt as the sauce gets hot. Now I'm just going to use my wooden spoon and crush the tomatoes a little bit. Just the bigger pieces that I see. Or break them in half, I suppose. I'm going to turn my heat up a little bit because I want to bring this to a boil. And once it reaches a boil, I'm going to turn it down to a simmer and simmer it for 30 minutes partially covered. I don't want to cover it because I do want a little bit of that liquid to evaporate. Let's take a look at our potatoes and carrots here. See if maybe they're fork tender yet. Let me grab a fork. They've been in for about 20 minutes. The potatoes are definitely fork tender. I'm not sure about the carrots though. Let's see, I'll use my right hand here. They could probably use another 5 or 10 minutes. So let's get back to our sauce. Let me turn the tripod. There we go. And that's starting to come to a boil. I'm just stirring it so that nothing sticks to the bottom, and so the boil comes naturally. And you know, because sometimes if you don't stir, it'll start to boil, but then when you stir, the boil will be gone. You want it to gradually come to a boil, like I said, so nothing gets burned. And I'm still taking that opportunity to break apart the larger pieces of tomatoes. So it's been about a half hour. My potatoes are definitely done. And the carrots are fork tender, okay? So these are ready to be drained and cooled before we continue to make the vegan cheese. And we're gonna get back to our pizza dough. If you would just please stay tuned for a last quick word from my sponsors. Usually what I do is I mash my sauce a little bit. After it's been cooking for about 5 minutes or so, the tomatoes have softened up quite a bit, and I just take a potato masher and I mash, because I like a thick pizza sauce. When the sauce is done, you have the option to leave it as is, or you can run a stick blender through it and have a nice smooth pizza sauce. I just like the chunks of tomatoes and garlic in my pizza, so I mash a little bit just to make sure all of those large pieces of tomatoes aren't as large, for a lack of a better way of saying it. There. So it's nice and chunky, but it's not filled with huge pieces of tomato. So I'm going to cover that partially and let that continue to simmer. My dough has been rising for 1 hour, and it has definitely doubled in size. Let's take a look at that. So it's ready for the next step. What I'm going to do is just dump that out onto my counter. And I have this bowl, and I have a second bowl here that I've put some oil in, okay? Because we're going to divide the dough in two. And we're going to roll it into 2 balls of dough and let them rest for 15 minutes. Now, if you wanted to be precise, you could take a kitchen scale, but I'm just eyeballing it. I've made this pizza so many times. So many times. And they're about the same size, so I'm good with that. So I'm just rolling it. And you see what I do at the bottom? I kind of push it in as I roll it with the bottoms of my fingers. And there's no need to flour your surface because there's oil, right? So I'm going to put this one into the bowl, just rolling it around to make sure it gets all the oil on it. This one too, I'm doing the same thing underneath. I'm kind of pushing it under, making a nice ball of dough. And then this one, roll that around too. And I'm going to let these rest for 15 minutes. I'm going to cover them with cling film, let them rest for 15 minutes. And while they're resting, I'm going to make my vegan cheese. Making the vegan cheese could not be easier. I'm just going to pour all of the liquid ingredients into my blender first. Now I'm going to add the potatoes and the carrots. Okay, they've cooled quite a bit. There's a little steam in there. They're just a little bit hot. So now I'm going to sprinkle in the dry ingredients. And the reason I do the dry ingredients last is because I want to make sure that they blend well. If you put the dry ingredients first, they could get stuck at the bottom of the blender, depending on what kind of blender you have. So all the dry ingredients go in there, and I'm going to blend that on high until it's all blended well. Once in a while, you might have to scrape down the sides. Just keep blending until everything is really, really smooth and you don't see any big bits of carrot anymore. The carrot is the culprit. I'm just letting you know. I have a pretty good blender. It's a Ninja blender. I used to have an old ostracizer before I got this one. And when I made the vegan cheese, it was very difficult. I had to actually put it through my food processor first and then through my blender. If you have a Vitamix, you have no issues with this whatsoever, but I find that the Ninja blender works very well for this. So I'm just going to keep blending it on high until I get a nice smooth consistency and I don't see any more bits of carrots like this. Pour my vegan cheese into a container and I'm going to put it in the fridge. You see how nice and smooth that is? There are no carrot bits. It really blended nicely. Now if you can make this the day before, it's always better because you know flavors combine nicely when they sit for a little while. But if you don't have time, like sometimes I don't have time, you can definitely make it the same day and it will still taste really delicious. So this is going in the fridge until I'm ready to use it. Okay, let's check on our pizza sauce. This is definitely ready. It smells amazing. I can't wait to try this. Let me give you a little close-up. So I'm going to cover this and leave it on the stove until I'm ready to use it. Now I'm going to prepare my toppings. Now for my cheddar cheese pizza, it's pretty easy. I'm just putting on the sauce and the cheddar cheese. But on the vegan pizza, I've got some onions here. I'm gonna slice it all up so that we have some nice onion slices. Sometimes it's easier when you take the skin off, if you can get it off. It doesn't slip around so much. Sorry for the banging. All right, let's be careful here, Rain. Okay, maybe I'll take the skin off this one. I have 2 small onions. I'm not sure that I'm going to use all of them, but I want them to be ready just in case. And with the same as the carrots before, like I said, I am making a soup tomorrow, so I can definitely use these in a soup if I have too many sliced. Let me try to get the skin off here so it doesn't slip around so much. There we go. Wait, there's a little bit on my knife. Get that off. Oh, it's starting to affect my eyes. Do you weep when you cut onions like I do? There we go. They're all sliced. Now I'm just going to separate them because I'm going to put them in a frying pan with some olive oil and fry these until they're a little bit brown on each side, because raw onions for me are very hard to digest. So I always like to give them a little bit of a cook if I can. They do cook a little bit on the pizza, but not enough for my digestion to be happy. So separating the rings, and there we go. I've preheated my oven to 475 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 245 degrees Celsius, or gas mark 9. And I want my oven to heat for at least 30 minutes. I have a broken pizza stone in my oven, but if you have a pizza stone, put it in your oven before you start to preheat it, because it'll make your oven a lot hotter and it will help the pizza cook better. So now in my pan here, I have a little bit of olive oil that I've put, and I have my pan on about medium heat. I'm going to add my onions. I want to make sure they're all coated with olive oil. And I want my onions to brown a little bit on each side. And I'm going to add my mushrooms as well, those canned mushrooms that I have. I just want them to lose some of their moisture, because a lot of the times, I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you have mushrooms on a pizza, they kind of make the pizza a little bit soggy. So if you fry them a little bit, it removes a lot of that moisture from the mushrooms. So we're going to let those go until the onions are a little bit fried and the mushrooms have lost a lot of their moisture. While the onions and the mushrooms are frying, I'm going to slice up my olives. These are really big olives here. I like the taste of green olives, on pizza. I think it tastes really, really nice. It's all part of my all-dressed pizza. My stomach is growling. I wonder why. I've been preparing for this pizza for the last couple of hours. I'm very excited about eating. For me, my favorite is the cheddar cheese pizza, so I'm going to definitely dive into that one tonight. But I always like to offer a vegan alternative when I can, because I know a lot of people out there don't eat any kind of meat products, and that's cool. You know, I don't eat too much meat anymore. It all has to do with my digestion, but once in a while, I just love to load up on the cheese. Oh, who am I kidding? Once in a while. I love cheese. But the vegan pizza is really, really good too. All right, so I'm going to set these aside for when I'm going to dress my pizza. I nearly forgot about my peppers. So I have to slice my peppers because I want them to be ready for the pizza. And I'm just going to slice my frozen peppers. They've been thawing for about half an hour on the counter. They're so easy to slice when they're partially frozen. And just a tip, don't slice from the top, from the outside, because that's very slippy. If you slice from the inside, it's much easier. And that goes for frozen or not when it comes to peppers. Okay, so I'm going to set these aside with my olives and go check on my onions and mushrooms. While the onions and the mushrooms are frying and while my oven is preheating, I'm going to shape my pizza. Look at this. Oh, I just love pizza. I love dough. I love the science behind it. I love how it rises. It's just so gorgeous. So what I'm going to do is I have two of these, I believe they're 9-inch diameter pizza pans, and as you can see, they're perforated. I actually got these at the dollar store, and I love that they're perforated because the perforations actually help the heat to cook the bottom of the pizza, and that's great. Now, the thing with these pans is that you have to make sure that you have something underneath just in case your pizza dough is, you know, this is pretty oily. You don't want your oil to drip onto your bottom burner, and that's where my pizza stone comes in handy. It's on the bottom of my oven. So just keep that in mind if you have the perforated pans. You can definitely use just a regular pizza pan. So onto the pan it goes. And what I do is I just press it from the center out, and I press it to fit the pan. And as I'm pressing it, you'll notice that it's creating that lip around the edges, so it creates that big nice crust. Okay, so at this point I'm just waiting for my oven, and I'm waiting for the onions, and I'm waiting for the mushrooms to fry. So I am taking my time because I want this to be really, really nicely pressed. I don't want to rush it. And I'm going to do this with both of my pizza doughs, okay? I may have to stop intermittently to stir the onions, which I'm going to do right now. There we go. It smells so good here. Ooh. I love pizza night. If you notice that you're having a hard time stretching your pizza out like this or pressing it, like if it keeps going back in like this, let it rest a little while longer. It may just need a little bit more resting time, that's all. There we go, the first one's done. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my second ball of dough. Get it into the pan, and I'm going to check on my onions and check on my mushrooms. Look at that bubble. I want to try to keep that bubble in there and see if that cooks and bakes really cool. Like, you know, if sometimes you get pizza dough and there's a bubble in it. Really, really cool. I love when that happens. It doesn't happen often with my homemade pizza, but I see that bubble and I'm going to try to keep it intact there. And I'll show you after if I've got the bubble or not. Oh, the little pleasures of pizza, right? Little bubbles make me happy. This dough is so easy to work with, my friends. But like I said, if it starts to shrink on you, just let it rest a little longer. And you'll see how nicely it will stretch out. Oh, there's another bubble right there. nice. All right. This one's ready to pre-cook. There's a little thin area. I'm just kind of pushing the dough in to make sure there's no thin areas. Let's get that crust nice and thick. All right, this one's ready to go too. A lot of home cooks have the same issue with pizza dough. When you're making it at home in your oven, sometimes you get that soggy bottom pizza. So the way I combat that is that before I put the toppings on, I put this into the oven for 5 minutes at 475, and I let it just sit there for 5 minutes, and then I take it out and I put my toppings on. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pre-bake my pizza dough for 5 minutes. So here is my pizza dough after I have pre-cooked it for 5 minutes. Now there's an area here that has risen, okay? So what I usually do is I just take a cup and I push it down. I just push the air out of the bottom of the pizza. That way it's ready for me to put the toppings on it. I don't want to take the air out of the crust, and there's my little bubble there. Let me show you. You see the little bubble there? That's probably going to brown quite nicely, but what I want to do is make sure the bottom is flat. Now my pizza is ready for the toppings. The first pizza I'm going to make is the vegan pizza. Now I've got my pizza sauce here, and what I usually do is I take a fork and I pull up the pizza sauce that way because I don't want all of that extra liquid onto my pizza, all right? So I'm going to give that a nice amount of that lovely pizza sauce, and it's nice and chunky. And because we pre-baked our crust or our pizza dough, it shouldn't get soggy at all. I have read so many tips on how to keep pizza dough from getting soggy. None of them worked, but I found that this works. Another tip that I can share with you is that I dip my little brush into the sauce and I put a little bit of sauce around the crust. That way it doesn't burn. I find that helps too. It doesn't make the crust soggy, but it does help it from browning too quickly because this pizza is going to be in the oven for 15 minutes. So there we go. And I'm not one who loads on the sauce or anything like that. The only thing I load on usually is cheese on my cheddar cheese pizza. All right, so now let's put the toppings on. I'm going to start with putting on those onions that I cooked. And I am meticulous, I know, when it comes to this. You can just throw them on as you wish, but I like to make a kind of pattern with the onions. I want to make sure the whole pizza is covered with onions. There we go. And now I'm going to top it with the mushrooms that I put in the frying pan. I dropped one there. In case you're wondering, I have parchment paper here. I have pot holders underneath, but there's parchment paper here because it is a perforated pan, and I didn't want to get my pot holders filled with olive oil. So I was just taking some precautions there. Okay, and now I'm going to use the green peppers. Ooh, Now that makes it an amazing all-dressed pizza, having green pepper slices. I have way too many that I sliced, but like I said, I'm making a soup. I can put these in a soup or I can put them right back into the freezer. I think that'll do. And now I've got my olives. This is a loaded pizza here. And it is pretty healthy if you think about it. Maybe my cheddar cheese pizza isn't as healthy, but this one is quite healthy. I have a little bit of powdered oregano here, just a very little bit. When herbs are powdered, they are more potent, so be careful of how much you use. But I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of that powdered oregano all over my pizza. And now for the vegan cheese. I just want to show you the consistency. Okay, so why don't I go ahead and put some vegan cheese all over this pizza? Because honestly, what is a cheese pizza, or what is a pizza without cheese? And this vegan cheese is really nice. You could use this to make a dip. You could put this on tacos. Anywhere that you think you might want to use some kind of cheese, you can try it. You might not like it on certain things. I know a friend of mine tried this on a poutine and said it didn't really work very well, but it works really well on the pizza, on tacos, on anything Mexican. So you got to try different stuff, you know? There we go. Now our vegan pizza is ready to go into the oven. I just wanted to show you this little gadget that I have. It grabs the end of the pans like this, and you can pick it up. It's really cool. It avoids using oven mitts. So I'm going to put this pizza into the oven for 15 minutes. Now I'm going to prepare my cheddar cheese pizza while the vegan pizza is cooking. So I've got my sauce here, and I'm going to do the same thing with my fork. Just put on the chunky parts of the pizza sauce. You can see those little bits of garlic in there. Ooh, that's going to be a nice bite of pizza. I honestly think that pizza is the perfect food. I have got to tell you. I have watched a lot of YouTube channels that focus on pizza making, pizzaiolis, and I've learned a lot. It's very limiting when you have just a regular oven at home. But there are ways to get around the little problems, like pre-cooking and, like I said, putting a little bit of the sauce around the crust so it doesn't burn. I've experimented with so many types of pizzas. I have a thin crust pizza dough. I believe I have that on my YouTube channel. I can put a link for you if I do in fact have that. I've done a pour in the pan pizza. I did a Dutch baby, which is an oven. Oh, my dogs are barking. A Dutch baby, which is an. Let me pause. As I was saying, I made a Dutch baby, which is an oven pancake, but I turned it into a savory pancake that looked and tasted like a pizza. It was really, really good. I'm going to put all the links for you guys because I don't want you to miss that. Okay, so for my cheddar cheese pizza, I'm just going to put the cheddar on. That's it. This is very, very simple. You may notice that my cheddar cheese is crumbled. It's not shredded. Hey guys, that's enough. They're smelling the pizza and they're getting excited. As am I. So yes, my cheddar cheese is crumbled, as you can see, and that's because it was frozen. When you freeze cheddar cheese, I can't speak for all cheeses, but when you freeze cheddar cheese, it crumbles when it defrosts. You cannot shred it, you cannot slice it, it just crumbles. But that's fine with me because usually I just use it in cooking. So I go to Costco once a month and I load up on everything that I need, and I either can it or dehydrate it or freeze it so that I only have to go out once a month, and I love that. All right, so I have some basil here that I've sliced up and washed, but I'm going to put that on after. Right now I'm going to put this into the oven for 15 minutes, and that's going to be my cheddar cheese pizza. Here is the vegan pizza. Look at that crust. It's nice and browned and everything is hot and melted. And here is my cheddar cheese pizza. I put it under the broiler for about 1 minute to make sure that the cheese was nicely browned. Now, one last thing I'm going to do with my cheddar cheese pizza is to put on some fresh basil. I don't put on the basil before I cook it because the basil will burn, but it tastes so fantastic when you put slices of basil on top of a pizza after it's been baked and broiled. So I'm trying to make it look real nice. There we go. A lovely cheese pizza just for me. Look at these pizzas. Oh my gosh, they smell amazing. I can't wait to taste them. The crust is nice and crunchy. I love how it rises like this. These are so simple to make. So pour yourself a glass of red wine and enjoy. I just wanted to share something. I bought these boxes on Amazon. They're pizza boxes. So if you want to make your pizza night fun as though you're getting takeout, you can put them in these pizza boxes. This video today. If you did, please give it a like and please do subscribe. If you don't want to miss out on future videos, don't forget to hit the notification bell for some more home cooking. And don't forget to leave me a comment. I love your comments and I reply to all of them. Please do share this with anyone you might think will enjoy it. Thanks again for watching, my friends, and I'll see you next time on Rain's Kitchen and Garden. Bon appetit!